Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the worldwide launch of Linear Choice Sires. Sure glad that you took some time out of your day to join us here. I'll walk you through a little bit of what we've been listening to and hearing from around the world, honestly, and some of the changes that we've made in the way that we select all of our bulls that go into the St. Jacobs lineup. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself, where I've been, what I've learned in my journey. I grew up in Wisconsin, about 25 miles from World Dairy Expo. I'm one of the few people in the world that have been to every World Dairy Expo, so there's been 57 of them, and I've been at all of them. I was 11 months old for the first one, so it's not like I planned all that, but even when after my wife and I moved to the state of Washington, those 12 years, we made the journey back to World Dairy Expo. Grew up on a small registered Holstein farm, milked cows, did field work, did all that. Went to college, was fortunate enough to win the National College Judging Contest, and that kind of changed my life course. All previous to that, I was planning on going home and farming. I like milking cows. Well, after I won the National College Judging Contest, I shattered my leg. Like I was on crutches for 3 months. So maybe farming wasn't what I needed to do, but I continued on my journey. I took a job with Landmark Genetics. They moved me to the state of Washington. I bought some bulls. You might know this one. Parker Arrow Wade was probably the most famous bull that I bought. But I stayed with them for about 2 years, and then I moved on to Roy Lane Registered Holsteins. And you may recognize this bull. His name was Roy, one of the highest selling bulls ever. I think he sold 1.2 million doses of semen. So that was kind of cool. There's some great stories to tell about the Roy contract and how all that worked, but that's for another day or over a beer here tonight. So that was pretty good that I got to work with Roy, and then I moved to Wilcox View Holsteins, and we did have some success there. We sold bulls to AI, including Wilcox View Jasper, who was a high-type bull at CMEX, and we had the All-American 3-year-old cow in 1999, Wilcox View BC Cami. So I get to travel the world and judge cows, and it allows me to get out and talk to dairymen in Japan, Australia, South Korea, Colombia, South America, all over Canada. I was in Mexico here a month ago, and just to get their stories on what they need in their genetics, how they're changing their life, how they change their farms and adapt as they go. And one of the things that we've done at St. Jacobs is adapt to what dairymen need. So around the world, there's different selection indexes for most countries. And there's a lot of emphasis on production, and there's more emphasis on health traits, and there's more emphasis on overall type, but not a lot of focus on individual type traits that take cows out of herds. For some people, that's too pinpointed, and it's going to reduce the amount of semen that's sold on bulls. Well, Linear Choice Sires is going to put some of those, and we don't have an index for it. It's just a selection criteria for us to make bulls, bring in bulls that will make more functional cows. We want to eliminate the extremes, basically is what that's all about. We don't want crazy high pins and we don't want crazy low pins. Both of them cause problems. You want desirable feet and legs. Cows that aren't too straight or aren't too set. You want them in the middle, really. Cows that can functionally walk, functionally get around, cows that can get up and down in any environment. Those are cows that have some flex to the hock. They're not too straight, they're not too set. So then you've got teat length that's been a hot button here the last few years. Like, we've got cows in the world with really, really short, tiny teats and that are way to the inside of the quarters. And if you're not walking around holding that cup on for the first minute, it's going to fall off. And in the rotary parlors, in robots, they're a problem. So let's try to get it corrected. And then teat placement is the other you don't want them too far on the outside, and you don't want them too far on the inside. So we have all these traits in our criteria. We try to eliminate those so they don't cause any problems. This, you may have seen this slide this morning when the gentleman from the Holstein Association gave his talk. Functional cows make more milk, and that made great sense to me. And I'm not really paying attention to this top one. I pay attention to this bottom one. Those are the classification breakdowns, 50 to 76 points. When you got a cow that scored 76 points or less, she's got functional problems. Those cows, in their lifetime, give a lot less milk, probably because they're in and out of the herd a lot quicker. They leave the herd. So let's eliminate that problem. So back 2 years ago, we had a conference call with 23 international sales managers from around the world. They were begging ABS and St. Jacobs to come with a group of bulls that made functional cows. We were selling a lot of St. Jacobs semen, but those bulls are generally over 3 on stature. In a lot of places, that's too big. And ABS had been really focused on net merit, making a lot of bulls that were negative on stature, negative on strength. These folks wanted to find a group of bulls that were positive on stature, strength, body depth. We'll call them right-hand linear bulls. I said, I will find them and I will make some. And to date, we've released 8 of those bulls now worldwide. Actually, I shouldn't say worldwide. We've only got to maybe 10 countries now. But the demand for that semen is off the charts. 7 of those 8 bulls are sold out. Like, we can't make enough semen. The next bull that we've got coming it'll probably be a couple months from now. So, I mean, we need to eventually, with the demand that we've got so far, what they gave me 6 months ago, we'll need 25 bulls making semen. So I'm excited about where this is going. I know that the demand is there. 6 months ago, it was for 385,000 units of conventional semen and about 200 units of sex semen. And I know the countries that are taking the semen right now are using more semen than they said they would. So I think we might have to have more stalls at ABS than 25. But like I said, the market, the demand is there. Dairymen tell me that that's what they want. The farms that I've been on here in Australia in the last week, I've been here a week now, every one of them has described linear choice sires. They need a little bit more strength compared to the stature. And in our U.S. system, we know that stature dictates a lot of things. There's the strength number is highly correlated to it. The udder composite is so highly correlated to it. We're trying to take the stature down, but still keep a higher udder composite. We certainly want the linear for the udder traits, rear udder height and width and fore udder, to be greater than the stature number. And that's pretty much going to ensure you that you're going to get a good uddered cow. So those are some of the things that we're working on for linear choice sires. When I first started putting this together with the help of those 23 people, I really thought that it would replace some of the 29 product code, those net merit bulls that were negative on stature, strength, and body depth. And that is happening, but it's also replacing some of the 94 code bulls, the traditional St. Jacobs bulls, because people really are seeing a need to get a moderate-sized cow that has enough strength. Every country I go to, they say, Brian, what strength bulls do you have that are under 2 on stature? And Linear Choice is going to fill that. So with Linear Choice, you're going to get a lot of production. You're going to get positive components, no holes, functional type. You know, medium-sized cows, correct rumps, correct legs, and correct teat placement. That's our main focus. And no haplotypes. So, you know, you'll have less fertility problems. If you've used an HH5 bull in the past, you can confidently use the Linear Choice bulls, and you know that you won't be doubling up on, you know, 2 generations that have a haplotype. So that's another of the things. And then no health trait problems. That's a group of cows in the UK that are all made from Dsu embryos. Some of those are bull mothers, but they're kind of the consistent type of cow that we'll be making with Linear Choice sires. That's the right-hand linear that we're talking about. Not too tall. All of the bulls that we've brought in have been under 2 standard deviations for stature, but they're all over 0.3 because we want a right-hand linear to make that medium-sized cow. One of the things that we've been looking at a lot more closely lately is making sure that the strength number is getting closer to the stature number. You'll notice in the cows around the world that, you know, you can have a sire that's 4 points on stature and 1 point on strength, and those cows are more frail than the bull that sires cows that are a point on stature and -1 on strength. That closeness of the relationship between stature and strength, it's a big way to indicate how strong your cow is going to be. So we're trying to get those a lot closer. I think the next slide is one of the best bulls that's ever been at St. Jacobs. Most of you would never guess that this is a bull that sold 900,000 doses of semen in his lifetime. He's about almost 20 years old. I got a little bit of semen left, but he was a really popular bull here in Australia. That's Aftershock. He made medium-sized cows that they had enough strength. And then you also got that wide flat rump that went with it. So that's a medium-sized cow. Aftershock made them. We try to get them positive on production. The first bulls we've brought in, I think this was maybe Dozer. He's a popular bull we're selling now, but positive production and positive components. No major health trait problems. We look at DPR, we look at cow conception rate. In Australia, you probably follow DPR pretty closely. Some places in the world that they don't have the seasonal calving, they follow cow conception rate a little bit more closely. Cow conception rate is based on if you put semen in a cow, does she get pregnant? And DPR is how many days from when she calved, how many days open is she before she got pregnant. So like if in the United States, at the farm that we ran at Glen Ann Holstein's, if a cow was milking 70 liters a day, 150 pounds a day in my world, we wouldn't breed her until she was 150 days in milk. Her DPR would be bad. But if she got pregnant on that first service, her CCR would be okay. Because We didn't put semen in her till she was 150 days, put it in, she got pregnant. So CCR and DPR can be used really in any environment. Most of the herds I've talked to here really do need to use DPR yet. So we try to have the DPR be positive. We do have a couple of the bulls that we've brought in have been minus 0.4, but they've been plus on CCR as well. Cavities, we try to keep it under 2 or 2.5 or less, and that's most of those you'd be able to put into heifers. And somatic cell score, everything has been under 2.9. So we want to make soft uddered cows that are functionally correct. So of the first bulls we brought in to be a linear choice, that's what their average is. So stature at a point, strength at 0.7, you can read all those things. Those are pretty solid bulls, and I think that figures out they'd be about 2,900 TPI. Marcus Reese, one of my Australian mates here that, well, I'm just going to throw him under the bus. He's in Hawaii right now on family vacation. So my wife that's with me here, we were a little disappointed we weren't able to see Marcus on this trip, but Marcus is a huge proponent of linear choice sires, and the last line there is what I think a lot of salespeople around the world are seeing, is that they can confidently put a linear choice sire in front of any of their clients. No matter if they're high type herds or if they're net merit herds, they like linear choice sires to make functional cows that'll work well in the herd. Who wants these? I know there's a lot of dairies in Australia that want them. There's, I think, 5 of the bulls in the U.S. All of them are sold out except the bulldozer. It's exciting for me to see the change in the way people have tried to breed their cows now, to make cows that really fit their herd, fit their environment, fit their management style. And I'm really proud to be able to bring linear choice sires to life here and to see how far it's going to go. I know that the brand manager in the UK, they haven't released any of the bulls in the UK yet because they know that there's not enough semen. Like, they think all the 8 bulls that we've released, if we put them in just the UK, that they'd take all the semen. So I'm trying to get it spread around the world a little bit before we go any farther. But that's kind of my talk on linear choice sires, and I hope there's some questions about where we're going, what we're trying, or comments on the trends that you've seen, and I'd entertain questions. Yes, sir, in the back.
I'm more beef focused, but I'm just interested, what characteristics come out in the first cross, one of your sires? What can you expect with the progeny in the first sire over your average cow?
Right, when you cross a linear choice sire on a cow that's too big, half of them are still going to be probably too big, but the other half will take on the characteristics of the sire. There's going to be a little crossover. You know, like when genes transfer, when that egg is made, you're going to get some traits from each. So it's going to take 2 or 3 generations to really make that traditional perfect cow.
Subsequently use that semen over the heifer calf again, or is that a no-no?
No, definitely you keep going with this. The nice thing with this is that right now a lot of the bulls that I have in the linear choice program are outcrossed to all the other ABS bulls because they've got Renegade and Conway and Riveting and bulls that we don't have the same genes in the ABS pool. So that's been one of the really good selling points for linear choice in just the ABS herds.
Yeah, Brian, I've got to congratulate what you're doing here. It's sort of detracted. I think we should have been going down the last 5 or 6 years. I pick up, there's nothing for me to pick up a catalogue and go through it. They said, well, there's not a bull there I'll use. And that's not to one particular AB centre.
Right.
And it's not even probably to what the Holstein Friesian Society are trying to look BPI and all the things they're concentrating on. They've left out the most important thing, a good functional cow with a good engine room that's got cross genetics. And then also being able to follow the pathway, sire pathway on some of those bulls is just paramount, you know. Like we milk 5,000 cows and we can fuck it up in 5 minutes if we start using a lot of these bulls in the catalogue, and that's why we're still using, in our situation, we're using Bradnicks and Moguls and all these bulls because we know the sire pathway, we know what we're going to get, we know we're going to get the right stature, enough springer rev and a good enough engine room, good udders, good temperament. And I can't see, instead of every one of our catalogues in Australia, sorry, I can only speak lightly, but rather than having a heap of shit in there, why the criteria isn't focused on your, and I know everyone will say genomics and I'm stupid and all the rest of it, but I'm not going to use bulls that are buy a bull that hasn't even got daughters on the ground, and then even worse than that, 2 or 3 generations that you haven't seen daughters of. It seems to be that in Australia here we're going down a path of into a bottomless pit. We just don't know which way we're going, but when you've got a good side pathway and you're looking for the traits you are, there's no damage in them, you know, like you can only move ahead. So don't mean particularly you guys, but anyone that's breeding like that has got to be encouraged. Yeah.
I appreciate your compliments, and I see that, I understand that the sire departments have to continually try to keep pushing the envelope to get greater production, greater health traits, and I understand that, but to not bring in bulls that sire balanced cows is a mistake, because like we saw in the slide deck there, those cows that aren't functional don't make lifetime milk. I mean, they're just less profitable. So it makes great sense for dairymen to use bulls that make functional cows. I understand that the AI Center has to keep pushing the envelope. Sometimes it's at the expense of function, but they have to, the bulls that they market that you want to find in the catalog, some companies don't have them. I'm glad to say we do now. Yep. Yes, sir.
When I went through to select the bulls for your lineage choice, and I'm like Les, I totally agree, you and I chatted a bit. How difficult is it? I mean, you know, a lot of the better type bulls are pretty high or reasonably high on stature. So when it comes to a genetic pool, say you are not condensing it down to